She was 9 months pregnant, working double shifts just to survive. But when a spoiled socialite pushed her down the stairs for being too slow, no one knew the truth. Her husband wasn't just any man, he was the boss of the most feared family in the city. And that mistake, it changed everything. Real quick, say hi in the comments and let me know where you're watching from. I always read them. Chapter 1, The Push. It started like any other long shift. The smell of roasted coffee beans, burnt sugar, and perfume floated through the restaurant's warm air. I'd been on my feet since 7 in the morning, and it was nearly 9 at night. My back ached, my ankles throbbed, and my belly, 7 months round, felt heavier than ever. Table 7 wants another bottle of champagne, called Lila, one of the other waitresses. I forced a smile. Got it. I'd been repeating those 2 words for months. Got it. Sure. Coming right up. Always polite, always smiling. The guests at La Vieira liked to believe the staff existed only to serve them, invisible unless summoned. Balancing a tray of glasses, I tried to steady my breathing as I climbed the stairs that led to the upper dining balcony. The lights glimmered off the marble steps, making them look slick as ice. My sneakers squeaked slightly, and I prayed I wouldn't trip. Excuse me? The voice came sharp and impatient. At the top of the stairs stood a woman in a tight red dress, her long hair gleaming like glass. Sienna Vale. I knew her name because she made sure everyone did. Her father owned half the luxury hotels in the city. She tapped her manicured nails against her phone screen, not even looking up as she said, "I ordered my drink 10 minutes ago." "I'm so sorry," I said, keeping my voice calm. "We've had a small delay, but I'm bringing it now." She finally lifted her eyes, cold and sharp as diamonds. "You're new, aren't you?" "No," I said quietly. "I've been here 6 months." "Then you should know better," she snapped. "People come here for service, not excuses." Her friends, 2 other women dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine, giggled behind their hands. I wanted to say something, anything, but I just nodded. "I'll get your drink right away." As I turned to leave, I heard her whisper loudly enough for everyone around to hear. "God, she moves like she's underwater. Maybe she shouldn't work if she can't even walk properly." I pretended not to hear. I'd learned long ago that talking back only made things worse. Back at the counter, my friend and co-worker, Maria, gave me a worried look. "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." "Clara, you should sit down for a minute," she said softly. "You've been going non-stop all day." "I can't," I said. "I need the tips." She sighed, knowing there was no changing my mind. I poured the champagne, balanced the tray carefully, and started back up the stairs. My belly brushed against the edge of the tray, and I steadied it with both hands. Just one more delivery. Just one more polite smile. At the top, Sienna rolled her eyes. "Finally." "I apologize for the delay," I said, setting down the glasses. She didn't thank me. She just turned back to her phone, muttering something about incompetent staff. I was halfway down the stairs again when I heard her voice, sharper this time. "Wait. My glass isn't cold enough." Before I could respond, I felt hands at my back, firm, sudden, and without warning. The world tilted. The tray flew. The champagne glasses shattered, and I was falling weightless for a split second, then tumbling down hard steps that didn't forgive. My breath caught, my vision blurred, and all I could think was the baby. I landed at the bottom in a heap. Pain flared through my hip, my shoulder, my ribs. The room spun. Voices blurred together above me. "Oh my God, what happened?" "Someone call." "Don't bother," came Sienna's voice, disgusted and unbothered. She fell. I barely touched her. I tried to speak, to say it wasn't an accident, that she'd shoved me, but the words stuck in my throat. Warmth spread beneath me, not comforting warmth, but the kind that made my stomach twist in panic. "Maria," I whispered. She was suddenly there, kneeling beside me, her hands trembling. "Clara, don't move, sweetheart, just stay still. I'm calling for help. Please, my baby," I gasped. Her eyes filled with tears. "You're going to be okay. Just breathe." But I could barely hear her over the ringing in my ears and the sound of Sienna still complaining somewhere above. "This is ridiculous," she said. "Now the floor's ruined. Someone get the manager. I'm not paying for this mess." My body trembled. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a broken whisper. "Adrian." Maria's head snapped up. "Your husband. Where's your phone?" Locker room." She sprinted off, shouting for someone to call an ambulance. The ceiling lights blurred. My vision dimmed. I pressed a shaking hand to my belly. "Hold on, baby. Please hold on." The last thing I remember was the sound of doors slamming open and a voice, deep, furious, familiar, cutting through the noise like thunder. "Where is she?" Chapter 2, Blood on Marble. When I opened my eyes again, I was surrounded by chaos. The paramedics were there, their voices sharp and urgent. Maria was crying, holding my hand. And standing above them all, like a storm in human form, was Adrian. His grey suit looked out of place among the flashing lights and spilled wine. His tie was gone, his dark hair disheveled, and his eyes, usually calm and gentle, burned with something I'd never seen before. He dropped to his knees beside me. "Clara." His voice shook as he brushed my hair from my face. "I'm here. You're okay, amore. I'm here now." I tried to smile, but my lips trembled. "The baby. She's going to be fine," he said, though his voice cracked on the word fine. "You both will be. I promise." One of the paramedics tried to move him aside. "Sir, please. We need space." Adrian didn't move. His gaze lifted, scanning the crowd until it landed on Sienna Vale, who stood near the bar with her arms crossed, pretending not to care. Something in him changed. The tenderness vanished, replaced by something cold and dangerous. He stood, towering over everyone. "Who did this?" No one answered. The room had gone silent except for the paramedics' equipment beeping softly. "Adrian," I whispered weakly, trying to reach for him. He ignored me, his voice turning to steel. "Who touched my wife?" The restaurant manager stammered. "Mr. Lucenti, sir, please, there's been a misunderstanding." His words died when Adrian looked at him. I'd seen that expression before, once, when a man had tried to follow me to my car at night. The look that said, "I will end you if you don't move right now." Maria spoke up, trembling. "It was her. Sienna Vale. I saw her. She pushed Clara." Gasps rippled through the room. Sienna's painted lips curled into a sneer. "That's ridiculous. She tripped. Don't make excuses for clumsiness." Adrian's voice dropped to a quiet, deadly calm. "You pushed a pregnant woman down the stairs." She scoffed. "Oh, please. She's fine. Look, she's talking." Adrian took one slow step toward her. The air seemed to thicken. Even the paramedics paused. "I want you to say that again," he said softly. "Say it while looking at her blood on the floor." Sienna paled. "You're insane. Who even are you?" Adrian smiled, but there was nothing warm about it. "You'll find out soon enough." The paramedics lifted me carefully onto a stretcher. I could barely see, but I caught a glimpse of Adrian pulling out his phone, speaking rapidly in a language I didn't understand. Italian, maybe. Maria followed beside me, gripping my hand. "He's terrifying," she whispered, "but I've never seen anyone look so afraid of losing someone." I wanted to ask her what she meant, but my eyes were too heavy. The next time I woke up, I was in an ambulance. The siren wailed. My whole body ached. Adrian sat beside me, refusing to let go of my hand. His other hand held a phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what meeting he's in," he said, voice low and controlled. "Tell Dante I need the hospital cleared now. Private floor. And I want Dr. Reeves waiting." The paramedic glanced at him nervously. "Sir, we're doing everything we can." Adrian didn't even look at him. "You'll do more." I squeezed his hand weakly. "Adrian, what's happening? Who are you calling?" His eyes softened when he looked at me, but I saw the storm still raging behind them. "Just making sure they're ready for you, amore. You and the baby will get the best care in the city." "I'm scared," I whispered. He leaned closer until his forehead rested against mine. "Don't be. No one will ever hurt you again. I swear it." There was something in his tone that made me shiver, not fear, exactly, but a certainty that whatever he was about to do, it would change everything. At the hospital, everything moved like a scene from a movie. The emergency doors flew open before the ambulance even stopped. Doctors and nurses were waiting. Security guards in black suits stood at every corner. They wheeled me through the lobby and into an elevator. Adrian never left my side. "Mr. Lucenti," said a grey-haired doctor who met us upstairs, "the surgical suite is ready if needed." "No surgery unless absolutely necessary," Adrian replied sharply. "You will save them both. Failure isn't an option." The doctor nodded stiffly. "Understood." They transferred me onto a hospital bed. Machines beeped softly around me. My heartbeat, my baby's heartbeat, steady, rhythmic, alive. Relief washed through me. Adrian stood by the window, phone in hand again, giving more orders in that clipped, cold tone I'd never heard before. "Every Vale property. Freeze the accounts. Audit the father's businesses. Quietly, but thoroughly. I want them drowning in paperwork by morning." My breath caught. "Adrian, what are you doing?" He turned toward me, his eyes unreadable. "Protecting you." "This isn't protection," I whispered. "This sounds like war." He came closer, his expression softening as he brushed my cheek with his fingers. "When someone touches what's mine, Clara, I don't call it war. I call it balance." The room fell silent except for the sound of the fetal monitor beeping softly. I looked at him, at the man I'd married in a quiet courthouse ceremony, who kissed my forehead before work and cooked pasta on Sundays. The man I thought sold logistics contracts. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd ever really known him at all. That night, as the city lights glowed beyond the hospital window, I lay in bed listening to the rhythmic hum of machines. My baby kicked softly beneath my hand, alive and fighting. Adrian sat beside me, his large hand covering mine. His eyes looked tired, but his posture was that of a man guarding a throne. "Who are you, really?" I asked quietly. He didn't look away. "I'm the man who's going to make sure no one ever hurts you again." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But as I drifted off to sleep, I heard him speaking softly on the phone again, and the words made my stomach twist. "Find the girl," he said. "Sienna Vale. Don't touch her yet. Just make sure she knows who she angered." And that was when I knew the fall was only the beginning. Chapter 3, The King Arrives. I didn't sleep long. The sound of footsteps woke me, quick, purposeful, too heavy to be the nurses. The room lights were dim, but even in the half-dark I saw the shape that moved toward me. "Adrian." My voice came out rough. He was still in the same suit, though the jacket hung open now, his white shirt rolled to the elbows. There were shadows under his eyes and something unreadable in the tight set of his mouth. "You're awake," he said quietly, pulling a chair to my bedside. "How do you feel?" "Like I fell off a building," I said. "The baby?" "She's stable. Dr. Reeves said you both will need rest and monitoring, but she's strong." Relief flooded through me so fast it almost hurt. Thank God. Adrian's hand found mine. His touch was gentle, but his palm was warm and trembling. "You scared me, Clara." "I scared you?" I tried to smile, but his expression didn't change. He looked away, out the window at the city glowing far below. "They pushed you," he said finally. "Maria told me." "The girl, Sienna Vale." I nodded faintly. "She won't touch you again." His tone wasn't raised, but the certainty in it made my stomach twist. "Adrian, please don't do anything crazy." He turned back to me, eyes dark. Crazy would be letting her live the same life she had yesterday. "That's not." "Clara," he interrupted softly, "do you think she would have cared if our daughter died on that floor?" I swallowed hard. There was no good answer. He leaned back, exhaling through his nose, forcing calm. "I've kept my work away from you on purpose. I wanted you separate, safe. But after tonight that's impossible." "What do you mean your work?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim black phone. "Marco," he said into it, "no lawyers. Handle it internally. I'll speak to the Vales myself." He hung up before I could ask what that meant. "Adrian." He stood, adjusting his cuffs. I have to go downstairs for a meeting. 2 of my men will stay outside your door. Don't be afraid of them, they're here for you. Men? Guards? I caught his wrist before he could move away. Please, don't make things worse. He looked down at my hand on his sleeve, then back at me. For a second, the storm inside him eased. Everything I do now is for you and her. Remember that. And he was gone. The hospital corridor outside hummed with activity, but I couldn't shake the tension that filled the air. Nurses avoided meeting my eyes. Security men in black suits lingered at the ends of the hallway. It felt less like a hospital and more like the lobby of a bank under siege. Maria came by with flowers from the restaurant staff. She sat on the edge of my bed, looking around nervously. Clara, this place, there are people with earpieces guarding every door. What's going on? I don't know, I admitted. Adrian arranged it. Arranged it. He owns it, from the looks of it. I tried to laugh but couldn't. Different tonight. Maria hesitated. Different how? Like the man I married is only half of who he really is. Before she could respond, the door opened again. 2 men in dark suits stepped aside and Adrian walked in, his expression calm but dangerous. Behind him followed an older man in a grey coat, Dr. Reeves, and another stranger in an immaculate black suit. This is Marco, Adrian said. He works for me. Marco nodded politely, but his eyes were sharp and assessing, as if memorizing every detail in the room. Dr. Reeves cleared his throat. Mrs. Lucenti, your vitals are stable. The baby's heartbeat is strong. We'll keep you for observation tonight. Thank you, I said, voice small. When they left, Adrian sat again. I've taken care of things. What does that mean? It means by morning the Vale family will wish they'd never heard our names. Adrian. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Rest now. You don't need to hear details. But I did need to. Because every instinct screamed that whatever he'd done tonight would ripple far beyond this room. As I drifted back toward sleep, I heard him whisper something in Italian, words soft, almost like a prayer. Later, I'd ask him what they meant. For now, I only knew the tone, a promise made in fire. Chapter 4, The Hospital Oath. Morning came pale and quiet. I woke to sunlight spilling across the floor and the distant sound of heels clicking in the hallway. My body ached, but the pain had dulled. Adrian was still there, sitting beside me, the same chair pulled close, his phone buzzing endlessly on the table. You didn't sleep? I asked. He smiled faintly. Couldn't. Watching you breathe felt safer. I tried to sit up, and he was immediately on his feet, adjusting the pillows behind me with surprising gentleness. For all his sharp edges, he had these small moments that made me forget what I'd seen last night. Breakfast, he asked. They brought fruit, but you should eat something heavier. I stared at him. You're acting like nothing happened. He hesitated, then set the tray aside. Because if I think about what almost happened, I'll lose control again. Adrian, I said quietly, I need you to tell me the truth. Who are you really? He met my gaze for a long moment, then sighed and sat back down. Do you remember when we met? That night at the diner? Of course. I smiled faintly. You said you worked in imports. I do, he said, eyes narrowing slightly, just not the kind that shows up on customs lists. My heart skipped. What does that mean? He didn't answer directly. Clara, there are people in this city who own things you never see, ports, trade routes, protection networks. I'm one of them. I control what moves in and out of this city. And the men who tried to cover up what happened last night, they know that now. I stared at him. You're saying you're in charge of all that? Like some sort of. He cut me off gently. I'm saying that if someone hurts you, there are consequences that reach places most people can't imagine. My hands trembled slightly on the blanket. So all this, the guards, the doctors waiting. Part of my world, he said simply. And I never wanted you in it. Silence filled the room. Machines beeped softly. I felt the baby move inside me, a small, reassuring kick. What happens now? I asked. Adrian's expression hardened. Now I make sure everyone knows you're under my protection. No one will dare touch you again. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. Before I could argue, the door opened. Marco entered quietly, murmured something in Italian, and handed Adrian a folder. He skimmed the pages, his jaw tightening. Already, he muttered. Fine. Tell them 10 o'clock. The orchid room. When Marco left, I asked, what was that? A meeting, Adrian said. Some people need reminders about respect. Is this about Sienna? He didn't answer, but I knew. Later that day, Dr. Reeves returned to run tests. He smiled kindly, but there was a trace of unease when Adrian stood nearby watching every move. You're healing well, the doctor said. We'll monitor for early contractions, but your daughter seems strong. Hearing the word daughter made my chest tighten. Did you hear that? I whispered to Adrian. We're having a girl. For the first time since the fall, a genuine smile touched his face. He placed a hand on my stomach, eyes soft. A girl, he said quietly. She'll never know fear. The warmth of that moment almost made me forget everything else. Almost. That evening, the city outside glowed gold as the sun set. Adrian stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear again. His reflection looked like a stranger, sharp-jawed, dangerous, a man carved from power itself. No, not the VIP wing, he said to whoever was listening. The entire floor. I don't want a single unwanted visitor. He ended the call and turned to find me watching him. You command people like you own them, I said. He shrugged slightly. Some need to be told how to move. And the veils? A muscle jumped in his jaw. They'll lose everything, quietly, legally, but completely. Their money will vanish before they wake up tomorrow. I pressed a hand to my chest. Adrian, that's revenge, not justice. He came closer, crouched beside me, his eyes level with mine. If I believed in justice, you'd still be lying on that restaurant floor. I don't want you to ruin lives because of me. He brushed his thumb over my knuckles. I'm not doing it because of you, Clara. I'm doing it because they thought they could hurt what's mine and walk away. This is my world's language. And I'm teaching them to speak it correctly. I didn't have words. Somewhere inside me, fear and a strange safety twisted together, impossible to separate. Night deepened. The nurses dimmed the lights. Adrian refused to leave when visiting hours ended. He pulled a chair close and sat holding my hand. Outside, the city lights shimmered like fallen stars. Will we ever be normal again? I asked softly. Normal died on those stairs, he said without hesitation. Then, seeing the look on my face, he added more gently, but I'll build something better. Safer. I closed my eyes, trying to believe him. After a while, I drifted into light sleep, half aware of his voice speaking quietly into his phone again. Yes, he said. Freeze the accounts. Sell their assets to the foundation under the hospital's name. She'll wake up tomorrow and think it's divine punishment. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, he was staring down at me, his expression unreadable. What are you thinking about? I asked. He hesitated, then said, that I almost lost you. And if I had, there wouldn't be a city left standing. I tried to smile. That sounds dramatic. He leaned in, pressing his forehead to mine. You'll learn I don't exaggerate. The next morning, reporters crowded outside the hospital gates. Somehow, news had leaked. Real estate heiress Sienna Vale under investigation for tax fraud and money laundering. Family holdings frozen pending inquiry. I watched the headlines scrolling across the television in disbelief. Adrian, what did you do? He set down his coffee cup, perfectly calm. A favor for the truth. She lied, cheated, hurt people. I just accelerated her consequences. This is too much, I whispered. He came closer, kneeling beside the bed, his hand resting gently over my belly. Look at me. She pushed you, Clara. You could have died. Our daughter could have died. I won't apologize for making sure the world knows what happens when someone tries to take you from me. His voice was low, steady, terrifying in its certainty, but part of me believed him, because when he said our daughter, the edges of his words trembled. Later that day, Dr. Reeves cleared me for discharge. The baby was healthy, My injury's healing. Adrian signed the papers before I could even lift the pen. As we left, I caught sight of the nurses whispering by the door. One of them murmured, "That's him, the Lucenti boss." The other shushed her quickly. "Boss." The word echoed in my head as Adrian guided me into a waiting black car. The city slid past outside, sunlight flashing off glass towers. I turned to him. "Boss of what, Adrian?" He looked straight ahead, expression unreadable. "You'll find out soon enough." I pressed my hand to my belly, feeling the faint flutter of life inside. The city felt larger, darker than before, as if every shadow might hold one of his secrets. Adrian reached over, taking my hand again. "Don't be afraid," he said softly. "Everything I have, everything I am, it's yours now." And as the car moved through the crowded streets, I realized that whatever world he ruled, I was already part of it. Chapter 5: The Confession. The ride from the hospital was silent except for the hum of the tires. Adrian's hand rested over mine on the seat between us, warm, steady, impossible to read. I watched the city slip by, the wide boulevards, the marble facades, the flashing of traffic lights reflected in the tinted windows. He didn't take me back to our apartment. Instead, the car turned down a long private drive lined with cypress trees and stopped in front of an unfamiliar building, a townhouse of pale stone and iron balconies. Guards waited by the gate. "This isn't home," I murmured. "It is for now," he said. "No one knows this address except my people." Inside, everything smelled of polish and cedar. A fire burned in the huge hearth, though the air outside was mild. Adrian led me through the rooms, never letting go of my hand. "I thought we were going home," I said. He stopped beside the window, light slanting across his face. "Clara, there's no going back to that life. Not after what happened. They know your name now." "Who does?" He hesitated, then exhaled slowly as if releasing a secret he'd held too long. "Everyone who matters in this city. Politicians, businessmen, men who wear uniforms during the day and other colors at night. They all know that the head of the Lucenti syndicate has a wife and that she was nearly killed in a restaurant owned by one of their friends." I stared at him. The words didn't make sense at first. "Syndicate?" "Yes." His eyes didn't waver. "I run it. I took over when my father died. For 8 years I've kept it quiet, built the business, made it legitimate where I could. But the foundations, those were never clean." "You mean you're a criminal?" His mouth curved slightly. "That's the polite term." I sank into a chair. "So everything, the cars, the company, the meetings that lasted all night, were real," he said. "Just not the kind you imagined." I wanted to be angry, but my voice came out small. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted you to have something untouched. You were light, Clara. And I didn't want my darkness on you." I laughed once, weakly. "Too late." He crouched in front of me, taking my hands. "I know. And I'm sorry. But understand this. What happened at La Vieira means there's no hiding anymore. The moment that woman touched you, she put you under the protection of my name. What are you going to do to her?" He didn't blink. "She'll lose everything. Her family will distance themselves, her accounts are already frozen. The law will find what I left for them to find. That's revenge." "That's order," he corrected quietly. "Revenge would be simpler." The fire crackled. Outside, dusk thickened until the windows showed only our reflections, me pale and shaken, him dark and certain. Finally I said, "I married a man I thought sold freight contracts. And now I'm sitting across from someone who controls half the city." Adrian's eyes softened. "You married the same man. You just didn't know how many doors were behind him." The next morning, I woke to the sound of voices downstairs. When I came down, Adrian was standing with Marco and 2 other men around the dining table, maps and papers spread before them. "She's not supposed to be here," Marco murmured. "She's my wife," Adrian replied. "She should know what she's part of." They stepped aside. Adrian pointed to the papers. "These are the Vale holdings. By tonight, they'll belong to the state. I want her father under audit, her friends answering subpoenas. When people think of her, I want them to think of ruin." The men nodded and left. When we were alone, I said, "You can't destroy every life connected to her." He poured coffee into a cup and handed it to me. "Watch me." I didn't touch it. "And if she apologizes?" "She won't," he said. "People like her never do." He sipped from his own cup, calm as if discussing weather. "Dr. Reeves will come by this afternoon to check on you. After that, we're leaving the city for a while." "Where?" "A safe estate. Out near the coast. Until the dust settles." I wanted to protest, but the truth was, part of me felt safer near him than anywhere else. Dangerous or not, Adrian moved through the world as if nothing could touch him, and when he looked at me, I almost believed it. That night, lying beside him, I whispered, "What if people find out who you really are?" He brushed his fingers across my stomach, feeling our daughter move. "Then they'll learn what happens when they forget who I am." Chapter 6, Fire and Roses. By the next morning, every news channel carried the same story: the Vale Empire under investigation, their assets seized, their daughter unaccounted for. The headlines called it a stunning financial collapse. None mentioned the fall down the marble stairs that had started it all. I watched the reports from the sofa, wrapped in a blanket. Adrian stood by the window, reading messages on his phone. "This is too much," I said. "You've destroyed them." "They destroyed themselves," he replied without looking up. I just held up the mirror. "People will ask questions." "They can ask." He set the phone down, crossed to me, and knelt beside the sofa. "Clara, what happened to you wasn't an accident. It was contempt. You were nothing to them but background noise. I'm making sure no one forgets that background noise can roar." There was conviction in his voice that frightened me almost as much as it comforted me. The next days blurred together: doctor's visits, security details, brief flashes of normality. Yet everywhere I looked, reminders of Adrian's reach appeared: the guards at the gates, the phones that never stopped ringing, the silence that followed whenever his name was spoken. One afternoon, Maria came to visit. Her eyes were wide as she stepped into the townhouse. "This place looks like a movie set." I smiled faintly. "I'm still getting used to it." She lowered her voice. "Everyone at the restaurant's talking. They say the Vale family's finished. Some people think your husband did it." I hesitated. "What do you think?" Maria studied me. "I think you're safer with him than without him." After she left, I stood at the window for a long time. The city lights flickered in the distance like a sea of restless stars. When Adrian came home that night, there was blood on his cuff. Not much, just a smear dark against the white fabric. I froze. "What happened?" "Not mine," he said simply, removing the shirt. "An old debt settled." I wanted to ask more, but his tone left no room. Instead, I helped him clean the spot from his wrist. His skin was warm beneath my fingers, his pulse steady. "You don't have to do this," I whispered. He caught my hand. "You still think I have a choice?" The silence that followed was heavy but not cruel. He drew me close until my cheek rested against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady, the only proof that beneath all the steel there was still a man. A week later we left the townhouse before dawn. 2 cars led the way, 2 followed. The highway was empty, the world washed in grey light. The coastal estate appeared like something from another life: white stone walls, terraced gardens, and the endless blue of the sea beyond. "This is temporary," Adrian said as we stepped out. "You'll have peace here." Inside, every room smelled of roses. I ran my hand over the smooth marble banister, remembering the stairs that had nearly killed me. "I don't know if I can ever climb stairs again without thinking of that night," I said softly. "Then we'll build a house with none." I looked at him, half expecting him to smile, but he meant it. He led me through to a sunroom filled with flowers. "This was my mother's," he said. "She believed roses could grow anywhere if you gave them enough care. Even in bad soil." "Did she live here?" He nodded. "Before she died." "I thought you'd like it." I touched a bloom, velvet soft, deep crimson. "They're beautiful." "So are you," he said simply, and for a moment the world felt still. That evening, we had dinner on the terrace. The air smelled of salt and roses. Adrian poured me sparkling water, poured himself wine, and watched the horizon darken. When the investigations finish, he said, we'll go back. But things will be different. People will know your face now. I frowned. I don't want fame. It's not fame, he said. It's warning. They'll look at you and remember what happened to the last person who touched you. I don't want to be feared, Adrian. He looked at me for a long time. You don't have to be. I'll be feared for both of us. We ate in silence after that, the only sound the waves breaking below the cliffs. Later, as I got ready for bed, I heard him outside on the phone again. His voice was quiet, measured. Yes, he said. The accounts are closed. Make sure the Veil girl has no exit routes. No one lifts a hand until I say so. He turned and saw me in the doorway. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Does it ever stop? I asked. What? The need to control everything. He set the phone aside. When you love something enough to bleed for it, you don't leave its safety to chance. I sat beside him. And if this makes you into something worse? He looked down at our joined hands. Then you'll remind me who I wanted to be before all of this. Days passed. The sea winds cleaned the air, and the ache in my body faded. Yet every night, Adrian's phone rang. Every morning, another headline told of the Veil downfall. Their hotels sold, their accounts frozen, their social circle vanished. One afternoon, while Adrian was on the terrace, I overheard Marco talking to a guard near the hall. Boss says she's not to be touched, Marco said. Not yet. Who? The girl. Sienna. I stepped into the hall, heart pounding. Where is she? Marco stiffened. Mrs. Lucenti. Tell me. He looked uncomfortable. She's in custody. Not official custody, our kind. Boss wants her questioned first. I felt cold all over. He said he'd ruin her life, not. I just follow orders, Marco said quietly. When Adrian came in that night, I confronted him. You have her. He didn't deny it. She was trying to flee the country. I couldn't allow that until she understood what she'd done. What does that mean? It means she's alive. And she'll stay that way if I decide she's learned. I stared at him. You think this will fix anything? No, he said softly. But it balances the scales. I turned away, tears stinging my eyes. I don't even know who you are anymore. He came up behind me, resting his hands gently on my shoulders. You know exactly who I am. You just hoped I'd never have to show you. For a long time we stood like that, watching our reflections in the dark glass. I wished I could hate him. I wished I could forget the warmth of his hand over our unborn child. But I couldn't. Because the terrifying truth was that the man capable of building empires and destroying families was the same man who whispered to my belly every night, telling our daughter stories about stars. That night I dreamed of falling again, only this time, when I reached the bottom, Adrian was waiting. He caught me before I hit the ground. When I woke, his arm was around me, his breathing steady. Outside, dawn was turning the sea to gold. I thought of the roses in the garden, growing stubbornly in their soil. Maybe, like them, I could learn to root myself in a world built on thorns. And for the first time, I understood that love and fear could live in the same heartbeat. Chapter 7, The Orchid Room. I didn't know how long we had been at the coastal house, days, maybe weeks. The air smelled of salt and roses, and every morning the sun rose over the water like a flame slowly easing open. I should have felt calm there, but peace never really came. Not with Adrian leaving before dawn and returning after dark, his voice a low growl on phone calls he never explained. One night, as the wind pressed against the windows, I found him in the study, what he called the orchid room. It was filled with white orchids, tall glass vases, and a desk piled with files. The soft light turned his face half shadow, half glow. You shouldn't be awake, he said without turning. I could say the same. He was reading a thin folder. When he saw me, he closed it carefully, the way someone closes a door they don't want seen through. What is it? I asked. He hesitated. Closure. Adrian. He sighed, rubbed a hand through his hair, and handed me the folder. Inside were photographs, reports, a passport, a plane ticket that would never be used. Sienna Vale's name was printed in bold at the top. She tried to run, he said quietly. I had her found. My stomach turned. Found? Where is she now? In one of our warehouses in the old quarter. She's safe. Safe? My voice rose. You kidnapped her. He didn't flinch. I stopped her from disappearing before she faced what she did. I don't want this, I said. I just wanted her to stay away. She will, he replied. But first, she'll understand what she almost destroyed. I pressed a hand to my belly. This isn't justice, Adrian. It's revenge. Then call it that, he said softly. Sometimes revenge is the only justice left. The room went quiet except for the ticking of the clock. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body was heavy, my heart heavier. He came around the desk and knelt before me. Clara, listen. I'm not doing this to feed anger. I'm doing it so that when you walk into the world again, no one will dare breathe your name with disrespect. You think fear is respect? It's safer, he whispered. His hands cupped my face. I could smell the faint trace of smoke on his skin, the scent of his world. You're shaking, he said. I'm not scared of her anymore, I said. I'm scared of you. Something flickered in his eyes, hurt, maybe. You shouldn't be. Everything I do is for you. He stood, turned to the window. Outside, the garden glowed under moonlight, white roses opening like silent witnesses. Tomorrow, he said quietly, you'll come with me. Where? To the warehouse. To see her. I shook my head. No. You need to, he said. You need to close this yourself. The next morning, the drive felt endless. The guards followed in a second car. Adrian drove himself. The city came back into view, smaller than I remembered, colder. We stopped in front of a plain building by the docks. The smell of salt and oil mixed with the sharp scent of metal. Inside, the air was cool and still. One single bulb hung from the ceiling, light pooling on the floor like a stage. In the corner sat Sienna. Her hair was tangled, her dress torn. But when she saw me, she lifted her chin, still proud. You, she said. I should have known this was about you. I froze, unable to speak. Adrian stood a few feet away, silent, watchful. Sienna laughed bitterly. What, are you going to make me beg? I tripped, that's all. It was an accident. My hands curled into fists. You pushed me. Maybe I did, she said. Maybe I didn't. You think you're the first waitress I ever yelled at. Something inside me snapped. I was pregnant. She shrugged. Not my fault you chose a job you couldn't handle. I took a step forward, but Adrian's hand touched my shoulder, firm. Enough, he said to her, his voice quiet. Sienna turned to him. Who even are you? The man you should have feared from the start. For a second, real panic flickered in her eyes. You can't keep me here. My father. Your father's in hiding, Adrian said. His properties are gone. His lawyers can't help you. The silence that followed was heavy. I looked at her, this woman who had changed my life with one cruel gesture, and felt something unexpected, not satisfaction, not victory, just emptiness. I don't want this, I whispered. Let her go. Adrian studied me. Are you sure? Yes. He turned back to Sienna. You heard her. You're leaving. She exhaled in relief, but he continued, you'll be on a plane within the hour. You'll disappear. If you ever step back into this city, you won't walk out again. Sienna's face went pale. You can't. I can, he said simply. And I will. He gestured to Marco, who led her out. Her heels echoed down the hall until the sound faded into the sea wind outside. When she was gone, Adrian turned to me. Satisfied? I looked at the empty chair she'd left behind. No, I said. Just tired. That night back at the estate, I sat in the garden, the smell of roses thick around me. Adrian came out quietly, sat beside me on the stone bench. I did what you asked, he said. I know. She's gone. I nodded, watching the waves. Do you ever regret any of it? He considered that. Regret's useless. It doesn't undo anything. It's human, I said. He took my hand, turning it over gently. Then maybe I stopped being human a long time ago. I rested my head on his shoulder. I don't believe that. Then don't ever find out how far I'd go, he whispered. Chapter 8. The Price of Mercy. Days turned into weeks. The news about the Vales disappeared from the headlines, replaced by other scandals. The city forgot, as it always does. But inside me, the memory stayed sharp and quiet, like a splinter you can't pull out. Adrian tried to make life feel normal. He brought flowers every morning, cooked dinner when he was home. We walked along the cliffs, his hand steady at my back. For moments at a time, I could almost believe we were ordinary people. But every time his phone rang and he stepped away to answer in a low voice, the illusion cracked. One evening, I found him on the terrace, watching the sea turn silver under moonlight. "It's done," he said without turning. "What is?" "The Vale girl. She's not coming back." My heart stumbled. "What did you do?" "Nothing fatal," he said. "She's living somewhere new. Different name, different life." "You call that mercy?" "It is," he said simply. "She's breathing." I sank into a chair. "And her father?" "Gone. They'll all vanish quietly." I pressed a hand to my belly. The baby kicked, reminding me of life, of movement. "All this destruction for me." "For you," he said, "and for her." He nodded toward my stomach. "So she'll never have to crawl for respect." The next morning, the house smelled of coffee and rain. I sat by the window reading when Adrian walked in wearing a dark sweater instead of a suit, looking almost human again. "We're going back to the city today," he said. I looked up. "Are you sure it's safe?" "It's never safe," he said, smiling faintly. "But it's ours." The city felt different when we returned. People stared when we entered the restaurant district, not with curiosity but with a quiet kind of fear. At La Vieira, the stairs were gone, replaced with an elevator and a plaque that read in honor of renewal. The irony made me laugh under my breath. Adrian stood beside me. "You wanted to see it. I thought it would help." "Does it?" I stared at the plaque. "Not really. It's just stone." He slipped his arm around me. "Then we'll build something better." That night, he hosted a dinner in one of the private rooms. Half a dozen men in dark suits arrived, his lieutenants, maybe allies. They greeted him with respectful nods, then looked at me like they didn't know whether to bow or speak. Adrian raised a glass. "To new beginnings." They echoed the toast, glancing at me with the kind of caution reserved for something sacred or dangerous. When the meal ended, the others left, and I found myself alone with Adrian among the empty plates. "Why bring me here?" I asked. He leaned back, eyes tired. "Because you're part of it now, whether you want to be or not. They need to see that the woman who survived is the woman I protect." "I didn't survive because of you." "No," he said quietly. "You survived in spite of everyone, including me." That honesty disarmed me more than any threat could have. Later, in the car, I asked, "Do you ever think about leaving it all behind?" He smiled sadly. "Every time I hold you. And every time I remember why I can't. Because power's too sweet. Because without it, you'd still be lying on that floor." I looked out the window. The city lights blurred like tears. Weeks passed. My belly grew heavier, my steps slower. Adrian became gentler, as if afraid one wrong word might break me. He brought me books, music, and a promise I didn't know how to keep. One afternoon, I found a small wrapped box on my pillow. Inside was a silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a rose. "From the garden," he said when I showed it to him. "A reminder that beauty can grow out of anything." "It's beautiful. So are you." He said it like a fact, not a compliment, and for once I believed him. That evening, as we watched the sunset from the balcony, he spoke again, softly, as if confessing to the sky. "I used to think mercy was weakness," he said. "My father taught me that. He said if you let anyone walk away, they'll come back to cut your throat." Maybe he was right. But watching you today, I realized mercy isn't weakness. It's the only thing that still makes me human. I touched his hand. "Then hold on to that, Adrian. For both of us." He nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. That night, I dreamed of water waves washing over red marble, rinsing everything clean. When I woke, Adrian was asleep beside me, one arm draped protectively over my belly. His breathing was deep, steady. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel afraid. I just felt alive. The world he ruled was cruel, but here, in this small circle of quiet, I found a strange kind of peace. Maybe mercy had a price. Maybe love did too. But in that moment, as dawn touched the sea, I thought, just for a heartbeat, that we might be able to afford both. The months slipped by faster than I expected. My belly had grown heavy, round and full of motion. Each kick reminded me that a new life waited just beyond all this chaos. Adrian worked constantly, though he swore things were finally quiet. We were back at the main estate outside the city now, a sprawling house of stone and glass, guarded at every gate. Every morning I woke to the smell of roses drifting in through the balcony doors. For a while I could almost believe the world was calm again. But calm never lasts. It started with whispers in the hall. Guards changing positions, hushed voices when I passed. Marco stopped smiling at breakfast. Adrian pretended not to notice, though his eyes followed every movement in the house. One night, I caught him staring out the window long after midnight. "Something's wrong," I said. He turned slowly, expression blank. "Just work. Don't lie to me." A pause, then a sigh. "There are people who think I've grown soft. Because of me. Because I chose peace when they expected blood." He walked over, brushed my hair from my face. "They forget that peace exists only because I allow it." His phone buzzed. He looked down, jaw tightening. "Go back to bed, amore. I'll be right there." But he didn't come to bed. I woke again at dawn to the sound of engines in the driveway. Black cars. Too many. By afternoon the estate felt like a fortress. I found Marco near the garden, speaking into an earpiece. "What's happening?" I asked. He hesitated. "Security check, Mrs. Lucenti. Tell me the truth." He looked away. "We caught someone passing information from inside." My heart stuttered. "A traitor?" He nodded. "We're still searching." I hurried back inside. Adrian was in his office, sleeves rolled, papers scattered. "Adrian, what are they saying?" "That's someone here." He didn't let me finish. "Handled." "Handled how? You don't want the details." I stepped closer. "Stop deciding what I want to know." He looked up, tired but fierce. "If I told you everything, you'd never sleep again. Maybe I'd understand you better." His mouth softened. "There are things I don't want you to understand." I opened my mouth to argue, but a crash outside cut through the air, metal, shouting, then gunfire. Adrian's chair hit the floor as he ran for the door. "Stay here, Adrian." But he was already gone. The sound came closer, boots pounding, orders shouted in 2 languages. I backed toward the nursery, one hand over my belly, the other clutching my phone. The air smelled of smoke and gunpowder. A guard burst into the room. Please, we have to move you." "Where's Adrian?" "He's fine, but we need to." A window shattered behind us. The guard shoved me down as glass rained over the floor. More shots. He pulled me toward the hallway, half dragging me through the smoke. We reached a heavy door leading to a lower corridor. "This way," he said. Before we could open it, another voice echoed from the end of the hall. "Clara. Adrian." He was covered in soot, eyes burning. "Go," he shouted. "Get her to the car." The guard obeyed, pushing me forward. My legs trembled, but adrenaline kept me moving. We spilled out into the courtyard where men were firing toward the gates. The roar of engines, the sharp bark of orders, it was chaos. Adrian appeared beside me, grabbed my hand, and pulled me into a waiting car. Marco slammed the door and jumped into the front seat. As the car sped down the driveway, I saw flames licking at the edge of the east wing. My home, our supposed sanctuary, turning to smoke. We drove until the city lights blurred behind us. Finally, Adrian told Marco to stop under an old stone bridge by the river. He turned to me, breathing hard. "Are you hurt?" "No," I whispered. "What happened?" "An inside betrayal. Someone sold the estate's location and guard shifts." He ran a hand through his hair, streaked with ash. "They thought they could take you to use against me." I pressed my hands over my stomach. The baby, she's okay, I think. He looked at me then, truly looked, and his voice broke. I swear, I'll burn every man who was part of this. Please, no more fire, I said softly. Just keep us safe. He closed his eyes for a moment. I will. But safety doesn't come free. That night we stayed in an old safe house near the docks. It smelled of salt and dust, the kind of place built for hiding, not living. Adrian refused to sleep. He sat by the window, pistol on the table beside him, until dawn painted the sky grey. When morning came, he brought me coffee and a blanket. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should have seen this coming. You can't control everything. He gave a small, humorless smile. That's the problem. I'm supposed to. By evening, Marco returned with news. The attackers were dead. One of them had been a guard we'd trusted for years. Adrian said nothing for a long time. Then he stood. Bury them far from here, he told Marco. And make sure the city knows what happens to traitors. I wanted to stop him, to pull him back to the gentle man who used to make breakfast on Sundays. But that man felt miles away. 2 days later, we went back to the ruined estate. The smell of smoke lingered, but the main house still stood. I walked through the hall, the walls blackened in places, marble scorched. It can be repaired, Adrian said behind me. I turned. And us? He hesitated. We don't break, Clara. We rebuild. I touched his cheek, rough with exhaustion. Then rebuild for her, not for pride. He covered my hand with his. For both. Chapter 10, Betrayal. The rebuilding started quickly. Workers came at dawn, guards doubled their patrols. But even as walls were cleaned and windows replaced, tension coiled around us like smoke that refused to clear. Adrian spent hours on the phone. Meetings. Negotiations. I could tell something bigger was happening. Each night he returned later, his eyes harder, his voice quieter. One afternoon I found a letter slipped under our door. My name on the envelope, no return address. Inside, a single line written in a shaky hand. He isn't telling you everything. I showed it to him when he came home. He read it once, expression unreadable, then tore it in half. Someone trying to rattle you. It worked, I said. Who would send that? Someone who'll regret it. He left the room before I could ask more. That night, thunder rolled over the hills. I woke to find the bed empty. Adrian's phone glowed on the table. A message was still open on the screen, coordinates, a time, and 2 words, inside man. I followed the sound of voices down the hall. From the balcony above the foyer, I saw Adrian and Marco standing below. They know about the shipment, Marco was saying. If the docks fall, we lose half our leverage. Adrian's voice was low, deadly calm. Then we take the docks back. All of them. Boss, if we move tonight, the others will see it as war. It already is. Marco hesitated. And her. She stays out of it, Adrian said. She doesn't need to know what I do to keep her safe. I stepped back before they could see me. My heart pounded. What I do to keep her safe. I already knew what that meant: violence, blood, another shadow on his soul. The next day, Adrian was gone before sunrise. Hours passed. The sky turned from grey to gold to black again, and still no call. Near midnight, the phone rang. It wasn't Adrian, it was Marco. His voice was tight. Mrs. Lucenti, stay inside. Lock every door. What's happening? He hesitated. There's been an attack at the docks. The boss is alive, but he's hurt. The line went dead. I didn't remember crossing the house, only that suddenly I was outside, rain slashing against my face as I shouted for the driver. The guards tried to stop me, but I screamed until one gave in and opened the gate. The drive felt endless. When we reached the docks, the air reeked of smoke and diesel. Sirens wailed somewhere distant. I saw flames licking from a warehouse and men running with weapons drawn. Then I saw him, Adrian, half leaning against a truck, his shirt torn, a gash along his arm. Marco was pressing a cloth to the wound. Clara. Adrian's voice broke when he saw me. You shouldn't be here. I ran to him. You're bleeding. It's nothing. He pulled me close with his uninjured arm. You shouldn't have come. I had to. They said you were hurt. He looked down at me, rain dripping from his hair. They betrayed me, Clara. Men I fed, paid, protected. They sold us for money. Then let it end, I pleaded. Walk away before it kills you. He shook his head. You still don't understand. I am this. If I walk away, everything I built collapses and they'll come for you. Lightning flashed, white and cold. Behind us, one of the trucks exploded, the shockwave rolling through the air like thunder. Adrian turned, shouting orders. Men scattered to put out the fire. I pulled him back, trembling. Please, Adrian. Let someone else fight. There's no one else, he said quietly. This ends with me. We returned home near dawn. His arm was bandaged, his face pale. I helped him into bed, wiping away blood and soot. For once he didn't resist. When I finished, he caught my hand. You shouldn't have come. I can't lose you. You almost did, I whispered. He closed his eyes. I'll fix this. All of it. But I didn't believe him. The fire had already spread too far. The next evening, the estate fell into a strange hush. Guards patrolled in pairs. Even Marco avoided Adrian's eyes. At dinner, I asked quietly, what happens now? He looked at the wine glass in his hand. Now I make an example. Of who? The one who betrayed us. Who was it? He hesitated. You don't want to know. Yes, I do. He sighed. One of my oldest men. The one who carried you out of the restaurant that night. The world tilted. He saved me. And then sold our locations to my enemies. Mercy is expensive, Clara. I stared at him. You can't kill every person who makes a mistake. He looked up, eyes like stone. Watch me. Later that night, when I walked past his study, the door was half open. I saw him sitting alone, the pistol on the desk, his head bowed. For a moment he looked utterly human, exhausted, lost. Then he raised the gun, turned it toward the doorframe, and fired once. The sound shattered the silence. When I ran in, the pistol lay smoking on the desk, the bullet buried in the wall. He hadn't shot anyone, just a warning to the darkness creeping around him. He looked at me, voice rough. They think I'm a monster. Maybe they're right. But monsters don't love. I knelt beside him. Then prove you still can. He stared at me for a long time. Finally he whispered, I will. For you. For her. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the burned horizon, listening to the distant hum of engines. Somewhere beyond those lights, Adrian was tightening his grip on the city again, one betrayal at a time. I pressed a hand to my belly. Our daughter kicked, strong, certain. I hope you never see this world, I whispered. But if you do, I hope you inherit his strength without his rage. The first light of morning touched the windows then, soft and gold, glinting off the shattered glass left from the attack. For the first time, I realized the truth Adrian had been trying to teach me all along. Power doesn't protect. It only demands more of you each time you use it. And the price of that power, the price of mercy, was already written in blood. Chapter 11, The Firestorm. I thought the docks had been the end of the violence, but the city doesn't forget a spark. Within days, every corner whispered about the attack. People said the Lucenti Empire was falling apart, others said Adrian was preparing for a storm. They were all right. The morning after the explosion, Adrian's office filled with maps, phones, and men who moved like shadows. I watched from the doorway, one hand on my belly, the other gripping the frame. You should be resting, he said without looking up. So should you, I answered. He rubbed his temples. I can't. They think they can finish what they started. Who are they? Old rivals, old debts. His eyes lifted to mine. People who believe my weakness has a name and that it's you. The words landed like stones. Me. He crossed to me, his hands gentle on my arms. You're the proof that I'm human, Clara. That terrifies them. I never asked for this power around me, I whispered. He smiled faintly. Neither did I. Yet here we are. The next few nights were filled with movement. Cars came and went. Men arrived with briefcases, left with orders. I learned to recognize the rhythm of it, the sharp ring of a phone, the low murmurs, the silence that followed a decision. One evening, Marco appeared in the doorway. "Boss, they hit the warehouse near the South Pier. Losses are bad." Adrian didn't flinch. Then we hit back harder. I caught his sleeve. "Enough, Adrian. You can't keep answering fire with fire." He turned, the calm in his voice more frightening than a shout. "If I stop now, they come for our daughter next. She's not even born yet." "Exactly." He kissed my forehead. "I'm building her a safe world before she arrives." That night he left again. The headlights disappeared down the long driveway, leaving me standing alone under a sky heavy with clouds. Hours later, I woke to distant thunder, except it wasn't thunder. The horizon flickered red. The east quarter of the city was burning. I found Adrian in the foyer at dawn, soot on his clothes, eyes hollow. "What did you do?" I asked. He dropped his coat on a chair. "I ended it." "Ended what?" "The war." He poured water into a glass, hands steady. "The other families signed surrender. No one will move against us again." "How many people?" He cut me off gently. "Don't count ghosts, Clara. You'll drown in them." I wanted to scream, but exhaustion swallowed the words. I sat, feeling the baby shift inside me, life pulsing against all that death. Adrian knelt beside me. "I know you hate this part of me, but I need you to see what comes after." "What comes after fire?" I whispered. "Rebuilding." Days later the news spoke of mysterious warehouse accidents, of unexplained resignations. But the fear in people's eyes told the real story. The Lucenti name carried weight again, too much weight. When I walked into the doctor's office, even strangers lowered their voices. "Mrs. Lucenti," they said carefully, as though the air itself might listen. That afternoon, Adrian took me to the balcony overlooking the gardens. The roses had survived the smoke, blooming stubbornly through the ash. "See," he said softly. "Nothing kills them." "Because you rebuild faster than things can break," I said. He smiled a little. "Because you keep reminding me why to rebuild." But the storm hadn't finished with us yet. That night, I woke to pain twisting through my stomach. Sharp, sudden, deep. I gasped, clutching the sheets. "Adrian." He was at my side in seconds, panic breaking through his calm. "Tell me, how bad?" "I don't know, it's early, it's too early." He shouted for the driver, for Marco, for anyone. Within minutes I was in the car, sirens blurring behind us. Every bump on the road felt like lightning in my bones. "Hold on," he kept saying. "Hold on for me, for her." I gripped his hand until our fingers went numb. Chapter 12, The Air. The hospital lights were blinding. Voices everywhere, machines, orders shouted in Italian and English. Someone wheeled me through double doors. Adrian tried to follow, but a nurse blocked him. "Family only," she said. "She is my family," he growled. "Then let us keep her alive." They pushed me onward before I could reach for him. The hours blurred. Pain, pressure, a cold fear that maybe neither of us would make it. When it was finally over, I heard a cry, thin, furious, alive. My heart stopped, then started again all at once. "A girl," someone said. "Healthy lungs." They laid her in my arms, small and perfect, wrapped in white. Tiny fingers curled around mine, impossibly strong. "Luna," I whispered. "You're Luna." When Adrian walked in minutes later, he looked like a man seeing light after months underground. He approached slowly, as if afraid I might vanish. She's beautiful," he said, voice breaking. I smiled weakly. "She's loud. She gets that from you." He kissed my forehead, then the top of Luna's head. "Thank you," he whispered. "For both of us." For a few precious days, peace returned. Adrian refused to leave the hospital. He carried Luna from room to room, learning how to hold her properly, awkward and gentle at once. The nurses whispered that they'd never seen a man so terrified of something so small. But news doesn't stop even for newborns. By the end of the week, Adrian's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. He ignored it until one night, after I'd fallen asleep, he he stepped into the hallway to answer. I woke to his voice outside the door, low, angry. I told you to keep watch. If they touched the shipment again, we're finished. Find who did it. I didn't move. I just watched him through the glass window, the man who could smile at his daughter one moment and plan destruction the next. When he came back in, he smiled gently. She fell asleep. Yes, I said. She dreams like you, restless. A week later we brought Luna home. The estate smelled of paint and new beginnings. Guards stood straighter when Adrian passed, their faces softer when they saw the baby in my arms. For a while, things were almost normal. I spent my days in the nursery, singing softly, while Adrian worked in his study with the door open so he could hear her cry. The world outside might have been on fire, but inside those walls we had our own quiet universe. Sometimes I'd catch him watching us from the doorway, Luna in my arms, sunlight on her face. His expression would shift from wonder to sorrow in the space of a heartbeat. One afternoon, I asked, "What are you thinking?" He smiled faintly. That I've built an empire strong enough to protect her, but I can't protect her from time. I laughed softly. She's a week old. Time moves fast when you owe it too much, he said. Weeks passed. Luna grew stronger. The house filled with the soft chaos of her cries, the rhythm of feedings, the scent of milk and roses. Adrian learned to rock her to sleep without looking like he might break her. But the city outside didn't rest. Rumors came of men vanishing, of Adrian reclaiming territory with quiet precision. He said nothing about it, yet every night new scars appeared on his hand, his voice, his eyes. One night, I confronted him. I thought the war was over. It is, he said. Then why are people still disappearing? He poured whiskey into a glass. Because peace has a cost. And who pays it? He looked up. Everyone but you. 2 months later, Luna's christening was held in the small chapel on the hill. Only a handful of guests attended Adrian's inner circle, Dr. Reeves, Maria, and a priest who never asked questions. As the ceremony ended, sunlight spilled through the stained glass, washing over Luna's face. She opened her eyes for the first time that day, calm and curious. The priest smiled. May she grow in strength and grace. Adrian whispered, she already has both. That evening, after everyone left, he carried Luna to the balcony. The city glimmered below us, vast and quiet. Look, he murmured to her. That's yours now. I froze. Don't say that. He turned. Why not? One day she'll inherit everything. I don't want her to inherit this, I said. The fear, the violence. He looked back at the lights. Then we'll build her something better. A kingdom without blood. Can you really do that? He smiled sadly. I can try. Later that night, I found him in the nursery, sitting in the dark with Luna asleep on his chest. The moonlight traced his face, softer than I'd ever seen it. She dreams peacefully, he whispered. Maybe that's her gift, to sleep through storms. I sat beside him. She'll need that if she takes after you. He laughed quietly. Maybe she'll take after you instead. Strong in ways the world doesn't notice. I touched his cheek. Promise me something, Adrian. Anything. No more wars. He hesitated, then said, I'll do my best. It wasn't a promise, not really, but it was enough for that night. The weeks that followed blurred together in warmth and exhaustion. I began to believe that maybe he could change. The calls grew fewer, the nights quieter. Sometimes I'd wake to find him already up, holding Luna and whispering stories in Italian about stars and seas. One morning, as dawn spilled across the room, he turned to me and said, she'll never have to know what we did to keep her safe. I reached for his hand. Maybe that's the truest kind of love, doing terrible things so someone else doesn't have to. He looked at me, eyes full of something that was almost peace. Then we've loved well. For the first time in a long while, the air around us felt clean. The world outside still whispered, but inside the walls, there was only the sound of our daughter's steady breathing and the quiet promise of another sunrise. The fire had burned everything it could, and what remained us, her, the ashes that shaped our lives, felt, at last, like the beginning of something new. Chapter 13, The Golden Cage. It had been 6 months since Luna was born. Our house glowed with quiet luxury, soft rugs, crystal chandeliers, walls painted the color of morning light. From the outside it looked perfect, but the perfection felt heavy, like a mask pressed against my skin. Adrian called it safety. I called it a cage. Guards walked every path of the gardens. Cameras blinked from corners. I wasn't allowed to go into the city without an escort. Sometimes I'd stand on the balcony and watch the road that led away from the estate, wondering if freedom was still somewhere beyond the gates. Adrian tried to fill the silence with gifts, a piano, silk dresses, a silver bracelet engraved to my queen. He meant well, he always did. But the gesture only reminded me how far I'd fallen from ordinary life. One evening he came home earlier than usual. "You look sad," he said, brushing his lips against my hair. "I'm restless," I admitted. "I miss walking outside, hearing people talk without lowering their voices." He smiled gently. "You're safer here. The world out there isn't kind to women who've stood beside me." "Then maybe I shouldn't have stood beside you," I said quietly. He studied me for a long moment. "If you hadn't, there'd be nothing left to stand for." Later that week, Adrian gathered his lieutenants in the dining hall. I sat at the far end, half listening as they discussed numbers, contracts, the quiet rearranging of the city's power. When the meeting ended, one of the men, a tall stranger with ice-pale eyes, approached me. "Mrs. Lucenti," he said smoothly. "You should be proud. Your husband has restored balance." I smiled politely. "Balance built on what?" He hesitated, searching for the right word. "Fear, perhaps. But fear keeps people honest." After he left, Adrian touched my arm. His new. "Don't waste thoughts on him." "I'm not sure I like the way he looks at us," I said. "He looks at everyone that way," Adrian answered. "Like he's counting what they owe." That night, after we'd put Luna to sleep, I asked, "Do you ever think about leaving this world? Selling everything, starting over?" He didn't even pause. "No. Not ever." He poured 2 glasses of wine. "If I leave, the vultures come back. Everything I built to protect you would crumble." I sighed. "So we live behind walls forever?" "Walls," he said softly, "or coffins." "I choose walls." I didn't argue. But as I watched him stare out the window at the dark hills, I realized that even he was a prisoner, just in a larger cage. A few days later, an envelope arrived. Heavy parchment, sealed with gold wax. Adrian opened it at breakfast, read silently, and frowned. "What is it?" I asked. "An offer," he said. "From the Romano family. They want to merge holdings. They propose an alliance, through marriage." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "We're already married." "Not us," he said. "Luna." I nearly dropped my cup. "She's a baby. They're planning for the future. A symbolic promise." "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not." Adrian's jaw tightened. "It's politics, Clara. Not love. She's 6 months old." He folded the letter. "You think I'd hand her over?" "Never. But refusing too quickly could look like weakness." "Then let them think we're weak." He shook his head. "Weakness is an invitation to die." That night I couldn't sleep. I stood by Luna's crib, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. Her hands twitched in dreams, as if grasping something invisible. Adrian came in quietly behind me. "She'll never want for anything," he said. "She doesn't need everything," I whispered. "She needs peace." He brushed his fingers through my hair. "Then I'll buy her peace, whatever it costs." I turned to him. "That's what frightens me, Adrian. You think peace can be bought. And you think it can be begged," he replied. For a long moment we simply looked at each other, 2 people who loved each other enough to break the world in opposite directions. The following week, the Romano emissary came. The man was older, dressed in grey, polite in the way snakes are polite. He admired the gardens, complimented Luna's eyes, and left behind a velvet box containing a child's gold bracelet. After he left, I threw it into the fire. Adrian didn't stop me. He just watched the flames swallow it whole. Chapter 14, The Proposal. 2 nights after the emissary's visit, Adrian held a dinner for his council. I attended out of duty, wearing the necklace he'd given me after Luna's birth. It glittered like a chain. When the last toast was made and the men had left, he poured more wine for both of us. The Romanos will expect an answer tomorrow. You already know mine. Yes, he said quietly. But they won't accept no. Then make them. His eyes darkened. If I make them, I'll have to crush them. That would start another war. I stared at him. So you'll let them have a claim on her? I'll let them believe they have one, he said. Appearances keep the peace. Peace built on lies, I said. Peace built on illusion, he corrected. There's a difference. I turned away, anger hot in my throat. You sound just like them now. He stood. And you sound like someone who's forgotten what the world is. No, I said. I just refuse to believe it can't be better. He reached for my arm, then stopped himself. Go to bed, Clara. You're tired. I'm not tired, I said. I'm trapped. That night I sat awake by the window, watching the moon climb higher. Below, the guards paced the driveway. The roses shivered in the wind, their petals falling like slow red snow. When I finally slept, I dreamed of stairs again, endless, gleaming, the sound of glass breaking. Only this time, when I looked up from the bottom, Adrian stood above me holding our daughter. Morning brought no calm. Marco arrived early, nervous. Boss, the Romanos are moving money through the eastern banks. They're preparing for something. Adrian's voice was steel. Then they misunderstood my silence. He kissed Luna's forehead, handed her to me, and left without another word. By noon, rumors reached even the servants. Caravans burning near the border. Romano warehouses seized by unknown men. Adrian returned that evening, calm and spotless, as if he'd simply been at a meeting. It's done, he said. What's done? They won't ask about Luna again. I felt cold. You burned them. He met my eyes. They made me choose between my daughter's future and theirs. I chose hers. 4 days afterward the house felt strange, too quiet, too clean, as if the world was holding its breath. Even the guards spoke in whispers. Maria came to visit, bringing baby clothes she'd sewn by hand. You never come to the restaurant anymore, she said. I can't, I admitted. It's complicated. She looked around the grand hall. It's beautiful, but lonely. Yes, I said. Beautiful and lonely. She smiled sadly. You used to laugh all the time. I still do, I said, but even as I spoke the words sounded hollow. That night Adrian found me sitting on the floor of Luna's room, surrounded by toys. Maria's visit upset you, he said softly. It reminded me that there's a world beyond these walls. He sat beside me. I know you hate this life. I hate what it's turning me into, I whispered. I used to see the world in colors. Now I see it in threats. He touched my hand. You're stronger than you think. Strength isn't what I wanted. He smiled sadly. Neither did I. But it's what we have. A storm rolled in that evening. Rain lashed the windows, thunder echoed across the hills. Adrian stood by the fireplace, the flames painting gold across his face. Do you regret marrying me? He asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. Why would you ask that? Because I keep giving you everything except freedom. I walked to him, touched his cheek. You gave me a life I didn't expect. Some days I hate it. Some days I'm grateful. Most days I can't tell the difference. He laughed quietly. That sounds like us. Promise me something, I said. When Luna grows up, let her choose her own world. He nodded. If she chooses to leave, I'll open every gate. And if she chooses to stay? He looked into the fire. Then I'll make sure the throne she inherits doesn't bleed. A week later, another letter arrived, anonymous, unsigned. It contained only one sentence: even kings can fall. Adrian read it, smiled faintly, and fed it to the flames. I watched the paper curl into ash and thought about how easily words can vanish when heat touches them. But in my heart, I wondered which king the letter meant: Adrian, or me, or the fragile empire we'd built between love and fear. That night I wrote in my journal for the first time in months. The world outside is loud and broken. The world inside is silent and perfect. Maybe perfection is just another kind of prison. Maybe that's why even roses bloom among thorns, to remind us that beauty and pain are always the same plant. When I finished, I closed the book and looked toward the nursery. Luna stirred in her crib, murmuring softly in sleep. I walked over, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You'll grow up free, my love. Free from the weight of crowns." Behind me, Adrian's shadow filled the doorway. He didn't speak, he just watched us for a long time, his expression unreadable. Maybe he knew what I was thinking. Maybe he feared it. Or maybe he was proud. Either way, the next morning he ordered the gates opened for the first time in months. "A drive," he said simply. "You, me, and her. No guards inside the car." The sun rose over the hills as we drove away from the estate. The road stretched ahead, endless and shining. For a few hours, it felt like freedom. But behind us, I could still see the house, tall, beautiful, and waiting. A golden cage glinting in the light. Chapter 15, The Visit. The world outside our gates still belonged to Adrian, but I wanted to see it with my own eyes. One afternoon, I convinced him to let me go into the city with only Marco and a driver. He agreed too easily, almost as if he wanted me to see what he had built. The city looked cleaner, newer, too organized. Street vendors stood straighter when the black car passed. Police nodded respectfully. Billboards carried the Lucenti Foundation's name, hospitals rebuilt. Schools funded. All of it painted in gold. "People fear him," Marco said quietly from the front seat. "But they also thank him." I looked out the window at a woman carrying groceries, a child tugging her sleeve. "Fear and gratitude," I murmured. "Strange partners." He didn't answer. We stopped at the cafe where I had once worked, the place where I had been just another waitress. It looked smaller now, almost delicate. The new owner recognized me, eyes wide with a mix of awe and pity. "Mrs. Lucenti," she said softly. "It's an honor." I smiled. "It used to be just Clara." She looked confused, then nodded quickly. "Of course. Coffee." When I sat down, the smell of roasted beans and old wood flooded me with memories. For a moment, I was that girl again, tired, hopeful, still believing the world would be kind if she worked hard enough. I left a tip that made her gasp and stepped back into the sunlight feeling both lighter and sadder. That evening, when I returned home, Adrian was in his study. He looked up from his papers. "Did you enjoy the city?" "It's different," I said. "Everything has your mark on it." He smiled faintly. "I built it for you. I didn't ask for an empire." He closed the folder and leaned back. "And yet you live in one." Before I could answer, a knock echoed through the hall. Marco entered with a man in a plain suit. "He insists it's important," Marco said. The visitor stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Lucenti, my name is Carlo Mendez. I'm an investigative journalist." Adrian's expression froze. "And you found your way here how?" "I have sources," Mendez said calmly. "But I'm not here to threaten. I'm here to tell you that people are asking questions about the fires, the disappearances, the accounts in your name. If I don't write the story, someone else will." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What do you want?" "Truth," he said simply. "Or at least your version of it." Adrian's voice was cold. "You should leave." Mendez looked at me instead. "Mrs. Lucenti, the world sees you as a ghost wrapped in gold. If you ever want to be seen as a person again, talk to me." I didn't know what to say. He handed me a card and walked out under Marco's watchful glare. When the door closed, Adrian turned to me. "You will forget him." "He didn't threaten us," I said quietly. "He asked for honesty." "Honesty destroys more than lies," Adrian said. "He's not a man you talk to." That night I couldn't sleep. The journalist's words echoed in my head, "If you ever want to be seen as a person again." Was I still one? Or just the myth beside the man who owned everything? 3 nights later, Mendez disappeared. The morning papers called it an accident, his car found near the cliffs, engine still running. Adrian didn't mention it, and I didn't ask. But guilt sat in my chest like a stone. After lunch, I found him in the garden, pruning roses. "Did you know?" I asked. He didn't look up. No what? About Mendez. His hands kept moving. Accidents happen. I swallowed hard. You promised no more wars. This wasn't war, he said softly. It was prevention. I turned away. You can't keep burying the truth. He caught my wrist gently, his voice barely above a whisper. Then tell me what truth would make you stay. I couldn't answer, because I wasn't sure if leaving was even possible anymore. That evening, Luna giggled for the first time, pure, bright laughter that cut through the heaviness like sunlight through smoke. Adrian lifted her in his arms, smiling in a way that erased everything else. For a heartbeat, I saw not the man who ruled the city, but the father who would burn it again if she cried. I wanted to believe that was enough. Chapter 16, The War Council. Winter crept in quietly, wrapping the estate in silver light. Luna was crawling now, her tiny hands leaving prints on every polished floor. Adrian watched her with awe, as if she were proof that something in him could still be good. But the calm was only on the surface. Beneath it, the city stirred. One morning, Adrian received a call that changed his expression completely. They've called a council, he said. Who? The remaining families. They want a meeting to discuss stability. He laughed without humor. When men like that say stability, they mean power. Do you have to go? Yes, he said. But this time, you're coming with me. I blinked. Why me? They need to see the Queen, he said simply. They need to remember who I built all this for. 2 nights later, we arrived at the council meeting, a grand old hall in the heart of the city. Chandeliers glowed above tables covered in silver and glass. Men in expensive suits turned as we entered, their whispers brushing the air like moth wings. Adrian's hand rested lightly on my back. Smile, he murmured. They can smell fear. I did. Every step felt rehearsed, every glance calculated. At the center table, the heads of the other families waited: Romano's cousin, 2 men from the Southports, a woman who controlled the banks. All eyes on us. Mr. Lucenti, one of them began. You've been quiet these past months. Adrian smiled. Peaceful, you mean? Peaceful, another said, is not always profitable. Adrian's voice stayed calm. Neither is stupidity. A few laughed nervously. The woman from the banks leaned forward. You rule with fear, Adrian. But fear fades. People want something to believe in. They already have it, he said, gesturing toward me. They believe in her. I froze. Every gaze turned toward me. She survived your world, Adrian said. They see her walk beside me and remember that strength isn't born in bloodlines. It's earned. Someone muttered, poetic. Another said, dangerous. I met their eyes one by one. He's right, I said softly. You all build your empires on ashes. But ashes can grow flowers if you let them rest. The room went silent. Even Adrian looked surprised. Finally, the woman from the banks smiled faintly. Maybe we've underestimated Mrs. Lucenti. Adrian's hand brushed mine under the table. They needed to hear your voice. I wasn't sure if he meant it as praise or warning. After the meeting, we stepped outside into the cold night air. The city glowed below, endless and alive. They respect you now, Adrian said. Maybe even fear you. I don't want their fear. Then take their respect, he said. It lasts longer. I looked at him. You're turning me into part of this game. He smiled faintly. You've been part of it since the day you fell down those stairs. Back at the estate, Marco met us with news. The council accepted your terms, boss. No more disputes. Adrian nodded. Good. It's time they remembered what peace feels like. When Marco left, I said quietly, they'll only remember until someone else challenges you. Then I'll remind them again. I shook my head. It never ends, does it? He pulled me close. It does. When we decide it does. The following morning, the papers were full of photographs from the meeting. One image caught my breath: Adrian and me walking side by side, his hand at my back, my head held high. The headline read, "The Queen beside the King." I stared at it for a long time, unsure whether to feel pride or dread. I had become part of the story, whether I liked it or not. Adrian came up behind me, kissed my shoulder. Beautiful, isn't it? I look like someone else, I said. He smiled. You look like power. That afternoon, I took Luna to the gardens. The roses were dormant for winter, their bare stems reaching toward the pale sky. I whispered to her, maybe one day you'll see them bloom again. She laughed, a bright sound that echoed off the stone walls. For a moment, I believed she might grow up in a kinder world. Adrian joined us, holding a newspaper folded under his arm. They're calling you the quiet ruler, he said. Maybe because I barely speak. Because they're starting to listen when you do. I looked down at Luna. If they listen to me, I'll tell them to stop building empires out of fear. He smiled sadly. You'll have to shout very loudly, amore. Then I'll shout. That night, as we watched Luna sleep, Adrian spoke softly. They think tonight was victory. Wasn't it? Maybe. But victory always plants new enemies. Then promise me something, I said. If another war comes, you'll choose us over the empire. He looked at me for a long moment. I already did, Clara. That's why the empire exists. Outside, snow began to fall, slow, silent, endless. The garden turned white, the world hushed. I thought of the journalist's card burning in the fire, the rose bracelet turned to ash, the golden cage that now felt almost like a throne. Maybe power was never about crowns or fear. Maybe it was about who could still hold love after everything burned. I leaned my head against Adrian's shoulder and watched the snow gather on the windowsill. For once, the silence between us felt like peace rather than war. Chapter 17, Echoes of the Past. Spring returned quietly, soft rain washing the soot from the roofs of the city. Luna had begun to walk, tiny feet pattering down the marble halls. Every stumble, every laugh, felt like a miracle pulled from the ruins we had survived. I told myself that meant the world was healing. But healing isn't the same as forgetting. A letter arrived one morning, no seal, no signature, only my name written in careful ink. Inside was a single photograph, a younger Adrian, standing beside men I didn't know, smoke rising behind them. On the back, a few words scrawled in red pencil, the past always collects. I showed it to him that evening. He looked at it once and placed it face down on the desk. Someone's trying to scare us, he said. Are they wrong to try? He lifted his eyes to me, calm and unreadable. The past belongs to the dead. I buried it for a reason. Maybe it's digging itself back out. He smiled faintly. Then I'll bury it deeper. That night I dreamed of the restaurant again, the same staircase, the same fall, but when I hit the floor, it wasn't Valentina standing above me. It was Adrian, holding out his hand. When I told him in the morning, he said, dreams lie. You should listen to the world, not ghosts. But the world was whispering too. People in the city spoke of old allies resurfacing, of debts unpaid. A name began to circle like a rumor in smoke, Dario Conti. When I asked Marco, he hesitated before answering. He used to work with the boss. Before you. Before the peace. What does he want? Power. He always did. One afternoon, while Adrian was away, a bouquet of white lilies arrived for me. No card. The scent filled the entire room, sweet, almost suffocating. I told the maid to throw them out, but she said they'd already begun to wilt. By nightfall, the petals had turned brown. When Adrian came home, I told him. His face hardened instantly. Luna stays inside, he said. No one enters the grounds without my order. I touched his sleeve. You think it's this Dario? He nodded once. He wants to remind me that he's still breathing. And what will you do? Decide how long he keeps that privilege. Days later, he called a meeting in the Great Hall. Every major figure in his circle attended. I sat at the edge, holding Luna, watching the men exchange cautious glances. Conti's moving shipments through the old ports, Adrian said. His bribed police, bought judges, even tried to turn my own men. That ends tonight. Marco asked, you want diplomacy or fire? Adrian looked at me before answering. Diplomacy first. Fire if they refuse. When the meeting ended, I stopped him in the corridor. Don't let Luna grow up in ashes. He touched my cheek. I'll try not to burn too much. That evening he left with half his men. The estate felt emptier than it ever had. Rain hammered the windows, thunder echoing across the valley. Hours passed with no word. Then, near midnight, the phone rang. Marco's voice came through, urgent but steady. "It's done. Dario's gone." I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "Is Adrian safe?" "Unhurt," he said. But changed. When Adrian came home just before dawn, his eyes were distant. He didn't speak until I asked, "Was it necessary?" He looked at me, the faintest tremor in his voice. "It always is." He walked to Luna's crib, watching her sleep. "She'll never know this part of me." I whispered, "You keep saying that, but she will. Children always know." He didn't answer. He just stood there until the sun rose. Weeks later, life seemed to settle again. But beneath the calm, I sensed something unraveling, threads of doubt pulling loose inside him. He was quieter, slower to smile, more drawn to the study's shadows than the light of day. One night he said, "Do you ever wonder what forgiveness costs?" "Whose forgiveness?" "Yours," he said. "Hers." "Mine." I reached for his hand. "Maybe forgiveness isn't something we buy. Maybe it's something we earn." He looked away. "I don't know how to earn it anymore." Chapter 18, The Last Promise. Summer came again. The city glittered like nothing bad had ever touched it. The newspapers called Adrian the architect of peace, printing photos of charity galas and hospital wings. No one mentioned Dario, or the warehouse that had burned to the ground the night he vanished. But inside the house, peace had edges. Adrian spent hours with Luna, teaching her to stand, to walk, to say papa. Yet every time she smiled, I saw the sadness flicker behind his eyes, as if he didn't believe he deserved her joy. One evening, as twilight settled over the hills, he took me by the hand. "Come with me," he said. He led me down the path to the edge of the estate, to the old vineyard that had survived the fire. Vines stretched in green rows, heavy with fruit. "You said once you wanted to see the world beyond the walls," he said. "So here it is, our beginning." "Our beginning?" He nodded. "I'm selling most of the holdings. The city can run itself now. We'll keep the vineyard, the foundation, nothing more." I stared at him. "You're serious?" He smiled, tired but real. "For the first time, yes." "Why now?" "Because every empire ends. I'd rather choose how ours does." The next weeks were full of change. The guards thinned, the gates stood open during the day. Workers arrived to restore the vineyard house, painting walls, clearing weeds. For the first time in years, laughter echoed from the courtyard. But power doesn't vanish quietly. The people who had once relied on Adrian's empire began to panic. Some begged him to stay, others threatened what would happen if he left. He listened to all of them, calm and unshaken. One night he told me, "Let them be angry. I built a kingdom out of fear. If it falls apart without me, maybe it should." The evening before our move to the vineyard, we stood together on the balcony overlooking the city. The lights shimmered below, endless and beautiful. "Do you remember the first night we met?" he asked. "How could I forget? You were the stranger who left €100 tip for burnt coffee." He laughed softly. "You thought I was trouble." "You were," I said. "You still are." He looked at me then with that expression that always silenced the world. "You turned the trouble into purpose. And you turned my life into a storm." "Then we owe each other the calm," he said. The next morning was clear and bright. We loaded a single car, no entourage, no guards. Marco stayed behind to manage the last details. As we drove through the open gates, I glanced back once and saw the mansion framed against the rising sun, the walls glowing gold. "Do you think we'll ever come back?" I asked. "Only as ghosts," Adrian said. Life at the vineyard was quieter than I remembered quiet could be. We rose with the sun, walked through the rows of vines, taught Luna how to chase butterflies. Adrian worked with the field hands, laughing in ways I hadn't heard for years. The city felt far away, like a dream we'd both woken from. Sometimes, at night, he'd sit on the porch with a glass of wine and say, "You know, I used to think power was the point of life. Now I think it was just the noise before the music." "What's the music?" then? I'd ask. He'd smile. This. One evening, months later, Marco visited. His hair had gone grayer, his face worn. Things in the city are unsettled, he said. Without you, others are fighting for pieces of what's left. Adrian nodded slowly. Let them. I warned them the world wouldn't stop if I walked away. Still, Marco said, they might come looking. Adrian looked out toward the fields. Then they'll find nothing worth taking. After he left, I asked, do you believe that? He took my hand. I believe peace is something we defend differently now. That night, as the crickets sang and the stars burned low, I woke to the sound of Luna crying. I found Adrian already in her room, holding her, whispering softly. When he looked up, I saw tears in his eyes. She dreamed of fire, he said quietly. She doesn't even know what it is, but she dreamed it. I touched his shoulder. Maybe she inherited our ghosts. Then we'll teach her how to live with them. Autumn came again. The vines turned gold, the air smelled of harvest. On the final day of picking, Adrian lifted Luna onto his shoulders and said, remember this, little one. The world can grow beautiful things from burned ground. She laughed and reached for the sky. That night we ate dinner under the open stars, no chandeliers, no guards, only candles and the hum of the countryside. He poured me a glass of wine and raised his own. To survival, he said. To beginnings, I answered. Later, when he went inside to put Luna to bed, I stayed outside watching the horizon. In the distance, faint lights flickered, perhaps cars on the road, perhaps ghosts of the city we had left behind. Either way, they were moving farther away. When Adrian returned, he wrapped an arm around me. Thinking about the past again? Just wondering how long it stays buried. He kissed my forehead. As long as we keep choosing the present. Months later, news reached us that the Lucenti name had quietly faded from the city's politics. New leaders had taken over. The empire was history now, a rumor told in half-whispers. Sometimes people said Adrian had died, others said he'd vanished across the sea. We never corrected them. One evening, as the first snow began to fall, Adrian stood by the window watching it drift. Do you ever regret any of it? He asked. I thought for a moment. Regret isn't the right word. I remember it. That's enough. He smiled softly. Then let remembering be our punishment and our peace. He reached for my hand. Promise me something, Clara. If one day I'm gone before you, don't let her forget who we were, not the power, not the fear. Just the love that survived it. I promise, I said. Years later, when Luna was old enough to ask where we came from, I told her, your father built a city and then gave it away so you could grow up free. She listened with wide eyes. Was he a king? No, I said. He was a man who finally learned how to stop being one. And as the wind carried the scent of grapes through the open window, I understood that our story, the stairs, the fire, the empire, had ended where it began, with a choice to live. You followed Clara and Adrian through fire, love, and betrayal. Now it's your turn. Drop your favorite moment in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you're part of this family before the next story begins.